Testing, testing, 1, 2. This is DJ Jungle Cat coming back for another episode on the Den FM Daily live to you, to your mobile devices, wherever you may be tuning in from all over the world, whether that's in post on the podcast or on YouTube. Welcome back to the show. Tonight we have the master of injury prevention and recovery, which I'm sure a lot of you will love. Especially if you are training up for an event like myself. And we've got Duncan of Salty Backs Muscle Balancing jumping on to give us his wisdom. I've got a couple of questions in the pipeline as well, but we'll start off with a bit of general chit chat when he jumps on here any second now. Here he is. Hi Duncan, how are you, mate?
Good, mate. How you going?
Oh man, top of the world as always. What about yourself?
Yeah, really good. Just had a yoga session. Felt feeling good.
All about it,
flexy.
Mate. How do you go when you're not the one that's doing the recovering?
Oh,
when
man.
you're the one recovering, not the one that's helping the recovery.
Oh man,
you know what I mean.
Just zone out, and it's just all about you.
What draws you to yoga?
I know, first time experience. Shout out to Mitchie Allen over at Ritual. Hooked us up. So yeah, so good. Feeling amazing.
Epic, man. All right, for those that are tuning in, how do you define what you do? Because you're not your traditional massage therapist, that's for sure.
Yeah, no. So I don't know, kind of just combining a whole range of different therapies from obviously the background I have in osteopathy and things like that. So I take a bit of that. Then the massage side of things where the practical kind of element comes in. Then we got sort of other studies that I've done both online and in person on fascial stretch therapy and NKT and a whole lot of kind of things we are just combining together in sort of one practice. So we're really just looking at the body as a whole, and just what I really kind of focus on, and sort of where my name comes from, the muscle balancing, is just looking at the body from front to back, left to right. And in theory, if your body is balanced front to back, left to right, proportionately, and I stress the word proportionately, yeah, you should be your body should be in harmony with no pain. I mean, your body's meant to have obviously tighter muscles in certain areas, otherwise you'd just be a complete flop. But I mean,
like this guy.
Yeah. No, you're tight as a stick, mate. I mean, but definitely, if we can balance out those muscles so that they're proportionately balanced all over the body, whether that's through the stretching or all kinds of means, it doesn't really matter how you get there in the end. But if you can keep that harmony within your body and the balance, you should be good to go.
Man, what I love about your purpose, I guess, is that it's come from like almost self-experimentation, like from your injuries that you've experienced yourself. That was kind of like the motivation for you to get stuck into the kind of injury prevention and recovery kind of stuff. Is that right?
Yeah, 100%, man. So like obviously growing up as a kid, played lots and lots of sport, and I was always that kid on the sideline who was injured, sort of injury prone, or like throughout the season I'd have like 3 to 4 like injuries that would keep me out for at least half the season. And I just got super frustrated with the information that I was getting from, say, physios or whatever it is. I can't really say too much on that, but I mean, just kind of frustrated with what I was getting told. I mean, and that's where I grew my passion, I guess, in a sense, to come up with a very holistic, well-rounded kind of thing. And that's where I sort of fell into osteo at uni, studied that for a very small period of time, and I just sort of really gained what I guess I needed from that, and then sort of have used and still study a lot of osteo stuff and just building upon that knowledge, I guess, and yeah, looking elsewhere.
So epic, man. All right. Well, so for your classic kind of everyday person that's just kind of moving their body and never really looked into it, where do you even start with things like getting your body balanced, or like, and what kind of signs can you see from like the classic early stages of development? Can you pinpoint it to one or two things, or is it more of an assessment kind of thing?
Yeah. I mean, like, it definitely comes down to an individual. You can't just like say, you group of people, that's what's wrong with you, and that's what's wrong with you. Definitely every sort of client that walks through the door is a new case, and definitely a different scenario. But I mean, definitely the things that I'm looking for is, there's so many like obvious and not so obvious cues throughout the body that are sort of telling you that it's not, and sort of the most basic ones are definitely kind of postural stuff. But I mean, you can't really stop there because posture doesn't tell you everything. You're looking at, one thing I definitely stress a lot on is sort of hip rotation and mobilization. I find that lots and lots of sort of people's pain that come through the door can be solved by minor hip manipulation, sort of, or just getting them back in sort of the right position with the hips. But I mean, it definitely stems from the ground up. I mean, it can filter down as well, but a lot of the time it comes from sort of that hip region or lower, and it just comes all the way up and forces itself out into different areas.
Yeah. Man, I love your the holistic kind of philosophy that you have, and your kind of your way of looking at things. Obviously, a lot of people that are tuning in to this conversation aren't going to be able to come in for a session because they're tuning in from places that are like elsewhere. But is there certain exercises or something that people can do just at home by themselves, either like be a roller or a tennis ball, like that kind of thing, for just kind of general loosening?
Yeah, 100%, man. It really comes down to if they can find the right muscles that are sort of tight, and the ones that need strengthening. That's all. Well, really, the only kind of information they need to put them on their way to sort of becoming pain free, and they can do all the rest sort of at home kind of thing. I guess just having that knowledge is the most important part. I mean, you can sort of put up a lot of information in terms of like, if this is out, this is what you should be kind of doing, kind of thing. But again, it comes down to the individual. But there's definitely things like, I definitely stress a lot with clients who come in with this sort of anterior rotation to their hips, that a lot of them are coming in with tight hamstrings, and if they have this anterior rotation to their hips, a lot of the time it's not actually their hammies that are tight, but because of this anterior rotation, which is caused by tight hip flexors and actually weak hammies, those hammies are just getting continually tugged upon. So things like that, I mean, it's hard to know unless you know, I guess, if that makes sense. But if you can just get that little inside knowledge into what's going on in your body, you can definitely do it all yourself at home.
For those that are tuning in, location independent from doing a session with Kai, you can jump on and follow him across there at Salty Backs. He puts a lot of coverage up with exercises demonstrating how you can do things at home. I've seen a lot of the stuff that you do on there, mate, and get stuck in at home myself. But you pinned me yesterday for rolling my ITB. For those that don't know, it's a muscle that runs, I don't know the scientific word, but pretty much down the side of your quad muscle, and it gets quite tight from the cycling. And unbeknownst to me, I thought I was doing the right thing by giving it a roll, but Kai pulled me back into line. And I think it all comes down to what you were saying about where you're feeling pain isn't necessarily where the pain is stemming from.
Yeah, 100%. So a lot of the time, you'll go straight to the source of pain. And if you get rid of that, you might feel good for an hour or a day or whatever. But then generally a lot of the time, especially in the case of tight hammies, if you do have that anterior rotation, you'll stretch your hammies and they'll feel good. for a day or even as little as an hour, but then they'll just come back and tighten up on you again. So that is a pretty good sign saying that that's not the source of the problem. You can just continually masking that pain, but it means you're never going to get to the source. In terms of the ITB, it's kind of a little bit different. The ITB, I'll correct you again, it's actually not a muscle.
Perfect.
It's a in its name, it's iliotibial band. So it's basically just a thick fibrous band that connects from your outside of your glutes and the muscle TFL that then links down into your knee. And that's basically the main reason why I sort of pinged you on that one yesterday. And if you do go rolling it, you're not, and again, you're really just sort of masking that kind of symptoms of pain through there. But because it is a more so fibrous tissue rather than a muscle, it doesn't have these elements that a muscle does where it can lengthen and strengthen. It just generally gets manipulated by the muscles above and below. And more likely than not, it's your upper glute muscles and that tensor fasciae latae, the TFL muscle on the outside of your hip there, that's tight, tugging on that that IT band, causing it to feel painful or tight, I guess.
Yeah.
And I mean, rolling it out can definitely desensitize it. So that's where you said it feels really good. But it's not going to ever sort of remove that pain long term.
Yeah, which I think is the key. Like you said, you can mask it, but it doesn't solve the long-term pain, which is the overall goal. I'm just wondering if you might be able to shed some light, because I know for me, like when you're not feeling any pain and your body feels good, it's so easy to kind of like almost turn a blind eye to recovery, or like, you know, it's so easy to just kind of think like, oh, I don't really need to do it because I feel good, and like I'm not gonna get injured kind of thing. Like it sounds silly to say it, but I think everyone does have an ignorant approach to be that recovery or injury prevention. When you're not injured, it's so easy to just kind of look over it. Maybe you can kind of stress the importance of staying ahead while you're ahead, and just like a lot of people will put the training in, but they won't do arguably the most important part of the training, which is the recovery.
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, it's definitely, I stress the fact a lot to my clients and everyone on my like social media. It's the important part of is prehab rather than the rehab. So if you can get on top of it before it actually becomes a problem, then you're already one step ahead. As soon as you start feeling that pain, you're already behind the 8 ball, and the longer you sort of put that back, the longer and the sort of more work you have to do to get back on top of that pain. So I mean, the same thing is if I have a client that comes in for a certain thing or whatever, if they're feeling really good after the session, I really like to try and get them in, depending on how they're going and how severe the kind of injury is, within a 1 to 2 week time limit, just so I can get back on top of that pain before it then comes back on them again. So a lot of people will sort of feel good, and as you're saying, you forget about it, and then all of a sudden it comes back and hits you like a ton of bricks, and that's when you just take a step back and you got to go again. It's definitely as important, if not more important, to do the prehab rather than the rehab.
And what might that look like for someone that's, say, going to F45, for example, where they're doing a pretty general workout most days? What might some prehab look like for someone like that?
I mean, it can be as little as 5 minutes on a foam roller a day if they're not feeling anything at all. I like to be as practical as possible, and I'm like everyone. I don't like stretching half an hour every day, and I mean, there's definitely people out there that love doing that, but the majority of the population definitely don't like to sit down and stretch for 2 times a day every day of the week kind of thing. So I mean, I probably jump on the foam roller and do a very light specific stretch on sort of areas I feel every day, but only for 5 minutes or so.
That's all it
Just
takes,
sort of,
5 minutes.
mate, I mean, like, if you kind of whiz around the body fairly quickly, get everything done in 5 to 10 minutes easily. I mean, everyone's body's different, but just sort of for the general person, I'd say definitely just if you can do something as little as 5 or 10 minutes every day, or every second day, or even every third day, you're definitely going to keep on top of those pains, and you'll definitely feel the difference. It might not be in straight up kind of thing that you feel it, but definitely down the line, you're going to definitely thank yourself for doing that kind of prehab stuff.
Epic, man. And I threw the kind of bait out there to anyone that jumped on my story before this. And I know, like, I get a few people message me as well. There's quite a few runners that tune into the podcast. And so I thought maybe it might be cool to touch on, like, because obviously I was rolling my ITB, which is kind of cycling specific, but it also kind of rolls into running as well. What about for a runner that's, say, like, putting in a few Ks a week, not feeling any pain necessarily? Does that differ in terms of 5 minutes on the roller, or are there specific muscle groups or areas that they could target?
For a runner specifically?
Yeah.
Definitely sort of runners, from what I see, definitely pull up in areas, your hammies, your quads, and then a lot of that time, as you had a few weeks ago, sort of filtered down into your knee there. So definitely keeping the balance and harmony between your quads and hammies, and just keeping on top of what's strong, what's sort of weak, what needs stretching, what needs strengthening, and just keep testing and evaluating yourself. Definitely quads and hammies is a huge part, and then adductors sort of go hand in hand, especially for someone like you who's doing that try off the bike straight into a run. Definitely keeping on top of those adductors and quads, and
with a roller on the foam roller.
On a foam roller, there's definitely a heap of ways to sort of stretch all that stuff out, and hip flexors as well is probably another huge one, and that sort of goes hand in hand with that kind of rotation through your hips. I know for you guys, working with a couple of triathletes, and what I've seen is that your hips do come forward a lot because you're sitting in that trail bike position a lot for a long distance sort of time. That's just forcing those hips forward, and then your hip flexors are in this sort of pinch state here, but they're also working. So you're in this forward position while these guys are working. So these hip flexors are just getting tighter and tighter. So they're not only in this pinch position, but they're also working. So this kind of is just driving these guys really tight. And then as you get off the bike, you're kind of up into this running position, but because these guys are tight, it's causing this kind of anterior kind of rotation through those hips there, which then you might feel either during the rest of the event or sort of a couple of days down the line. More times than not, you'll start feeling sort of lower back pain and stuff, general tightness through all that area.
Huge, man. The thing I love about, like, this whole, like, the whole recovery kind of space is how your left toe could be sore, but the problem that's arising is, like, in the kind of back half of the shoulder, that kind of thing. You know how everything how everything kind of
connected.
You pull somewhere and it's pushing somewhere else. You know.
Yeah. No, it's definitely all connected. The body's pretty crazy, and the thing to probably stress as well is that more times than not, your body knows what it needs to do to sort of correct itself. It's just putting it and nudging it in the right direction a lot of the time is all you need to kind of do. And especially in this day and age when everyone's kind of wants everything snappy like this, it's just about sort of speeding up that recovery time, especially if you are like an athlete or something like that.
Yeah, and playing to timelines really plays to your brand name, the muscle balancing. I think that's huge. It's all about the balance of the body. What about your little skeleton you got down there? I saw a peep of it before when you were showing us your hips. Do you have a name for him?
No, I put up a put up a post a fair while ago, and I got a heap of suggestions, but I never kind of put a name on him. Just
Mate,
kind
well,
of.
here's what we'll do. I'll make you a deal right now. So we'll have you back on the show in a few weeks' time, and by that time, we need a name for the skeleton there, all right?
Sounds good.
Man, just quickly, just kind of wrapping up, but when someone does come in to you and you're assessing them, could you run us through the kind of process of what you're looking for in a balanced body? Like in terms of when someone comes in and you're evaluating them, what are you looking for?
So generally I'll do a sort of postural check where they're sort of standing there, and I'll look from sort of toe, from ankles all the way up to the head. We're looking for if one foot sort of steps further than the other, does one foot rotate further out than the other, all kind of things like that. Are they weight bearing through one leg more than the other? Is one knee kind of jarred and locked and the other one isn't? Is one knee kind of rotated out, or are they dropping in? And then that filters all the way up to the hips. Is one hip sort of dropping in? Are your hips generally level? And then that goes all the way up. Shoulders sort of shoulder level, neck level. Is your neck sort of sitting forward? Because this day and age, sort of a lot of things that I see is this forward, like head, shoulder rolled forward kind of thing, just because we're at computers doing this all day. So it's things like that, and then we'll do sort of moving kind of one assessment, looking at their gait, how they walk, how they stand, how they squat, how they jump, depending on sort of their sport or activities they're kind of doing. And then just dive into real specific kind of what gives them that pain. So they have shoulder pain. Is it kind of this reaching out in this specific direction, and just really try and copy that sort of thing that's giving them pain, and then just really build a kind of idea and a script for what could be causing that kind of thing that's going on. And then it's, just doing a lot of muscle testing kind of things, how flexible obviously you are, left leg to right leg and all that kind of stuff, and just looking all over the body for the possible kind of, because as you said, it's sort of, you might feel kind of sore in the front of your feet, but that could be caused by tightness up in your hips or something like that. So you got to look all over.
Oh mate, absolutely huge. Really appreciate you coming on and giving us some insight and some real practical takeaways there for kind of your kind of everyday person, I guess. So really appreciate it, mate. Thanks for your time.
No worries, legend. I'll see you around.
Yeah, of course, man. For everyone tuning in, make sure you jump over there and check out Salty Backs. If you're local, get in there for a session, and if you're not local, then definitely worth a follow, because you'll get a lot out of the videos that he's chucking up there with some real practical rehab over prehab over rehab.
You got it.
Thanks a lot, mate.
All right, man. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, man. Bye. Absolutely awesome to get Duncan there from Salty Backs Muscle Balancing on the Den FM daily for a little bit of prehab over rehab, muscle balance action. Hope everyone got a lot out of that one. I certainly do, especially for the triathlon training I'm doing, but I'm sure everyone can take something out of that regardless. If you're moving your body, you definitely need to look after it and make sure that the muscles are balanced, friends. We want a balanced body. That is the goal. We'll be back tomorrow for another episode, so make sure you jump on then. If you are tuning in on the podcast, then make sure you subscribe and leave a review. Once again, thanks to everyone that's tuning in live. Really appreciate your time. We'll be back again for another episode tomorrow. I'll see you then.